Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the special Justice for Noel Clark podcast. And I'm joined by my good friend John the White. Hello, John, and how are you today?
Good evening, Gobby. Good evening, chat. How is everybody? Oh, well, I'm surviving, Gobby. Yeah, as
As
usual.
always,
One
yes,
keeps going through all of life's problems.
yes,
Um,
indeed,
Today we are gathered to talk about the other side of Adam Deacon,
indeed,
and there is a particular reason that we're doing this podcast is that Noel Clark has basically made history a few days ago
yep,
because after 10 years, he's finally given his side to the
yes, indeed,
whole Adam Deacon controversy.
yep,
And this fits in with the streams that we did last August,
indeed, it is.
where we talked about this is part of his history of Adam Deacon, and also the distinct possibility that Adam Deacon is in some way heavily involved behind the scenes with what happened with the Guardian
Yep,
publishing its articles against Noel.
yes,
So on Sunday, last Sunday, just this gone, two podcasts were released on the same day.
there we are.
One with ZZ Mills
Yep,
and the other with the Winners podcasts. The ZZ Mills podcast has had the most attention, I would say, overall. It's had about 85,000 views in the
mm,
last couple of days. The Winners podcast is around 50,000 views.
yep,
So putting that together, that's around 135, 140,000 people have already seen this material. However, these podcasts are mostly known in the London Black community.
yeah,
And so, in terms of our more sort of Doctor Who world,
mm,
it's not necessarily going to be something which people are immediately aware of. And,
yeah,
and we want to highlight what's said. In particular, we want to shine light on the whole Adam Deacon question.
yes, indeed,
And I've come out of retirement because unlike when I did my investigation and made my podcast last year,
yeah,
I am now terminally ill.
yes, indeed,
I'm doing this because I very strongly believe that people need the context and Noel deserves the support.
absolutely,
And Adam, it's time he faced up to his responsibilities as a grown up, mental illness or not.
indeed, indeed,
So what I would like to do tonight is we'll start off by putting everything in the context and telling the Adam Deacon story so far.
yep,
Then I will want to deliver something of a personal message to Adam Deacon. I want to try to speak directly to Adam over this podcast. And finally, I want to make some observations about this whole thing and how it's going down and how important it is now for Noel to be getting listened to, and
yeah,
how big it is that Noel's finally coming out and speaking up his at least some of his truths.
yes, indeed,
Um, Now, of course, both the ZZ and the Winners podcast, um, a good part of their content is dealing with the how come these allegations were made in the Guardian? How can 20 women accuse you something yet they all not be telling the entire truth? We've already covered these questions in
we
depth.
did, we did, we did,
Um, and so we're not going to add anything by going over that again. So we are
no,
just looking at the Adam Deacon issue, but
we,
don't take that if you're not familiar with what we've done before and you come across this podcast, don't take that as meaning that we're anyway dismissive or not taking seriously everything which was alleged in the Guardian. We've
yeah,
we've investigated it to the nth degree. You know, not to brag, but really no one's looked into it deeper than us.
no, no,
So we're
and
very well aware of all of the flaws in the Guardian's reporting,
indeed,
and all of the misdirections but people have been put through by the slipperiness of the Guardian's reporting.
Oh
You know,
yes,
how even now I'm hearing people make certain assumptions which are entirely wrong because of words the Guardian used in its
exactly.
reporting, and what assumptions that makes people think, even though we looked at it carefully, that wasn't actually what was being said at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So the
A lot of it.
Guardian article is a very thoroughly deceitful, discreditable piece of work,
Yes,
and
indeed.
you know it as we're more and more seeing it become discredited. We're getting closer and closer to the time where the journalist Lucy Osborne, Cyril Kale, and their bosses are going to have to face accountability for what they chose to do.
Absolutely,
They don't
100%.
they don't like it, but they can't
No,
avoid it. And they're
exactly.
far from happy to see Noel Clarke being listened to. Far from
Oh God,
happy.
absolutely, absolutely not happy at all. They're not
Right,
happy.
let's just check in. We've got some people in the chat. No,
Yeah,
no
we've got
particular questions from chat yet.
no
Okay, that's
particular
okay. We'll
questions.
crack along.
Right
So
then,
let's start by setting the context for Adam Deacon's relationship with Noel Clarke.
right then. No worries, mate.
So this all starts in 2003,
Yeah.
where Adam and Noel meet for the first time. They're
Hmm.
both at quite early points in their career. They
Hmm.
get on, they become mates, and Noel makes sure, you know, that Adam's involved in everything that he does. So he's in his first film, Kidulthood. He's in his second film, Adulthood, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009. No issues, no problems.
Nothing at all.
You
All
know,
good.
everything is good.
Yep.
Yeah,
All
there's
good.
nothing, there's no awareness of conflict. You know, everything seems to be all right, and this is how I get on. You know, for 7 years.
Mm.
Then, of course, in that time, both kidulthood and then adulthood, you know, become really hit films, hit genre
Yeah.
films, and they also build both Noel and Adam's reputations in the black community. You know, so there's you know, both of the films are seen as very important because what they have to say about growing up in a city and in a city life.
Yep.
You know, and they're really big. You know, Noel's scripts. You know, Noel's production. They become really big cultural deal. The hood films gain a lot of cultural weight.
Oh yes, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
they are a recognizable presence in the cultural landscape.
Yep. 100%.
So in late 2009, early 2010, Adam has an idea. It doesn't seems like a reasonably good idea.
Yeah, it sounded like
You
a
know,
good idea.
he recognizes that there's this market, there's this interest out there. So he says, let's make a film which is a pastiche.
Yeah.
Let's send ourselves up, you know, and make some money with a pastiche film. Because if we don't do it, somebody else will, or whatever the precise reasons were. This is a good idea. So
Yeah.
he talks to Noel about it, and Noel agrees. And so this is the project that will become the film Anotherhood.
Yeah. The Another Hood. Yep.
Right. So Noel starts work on the movie, and you know he's going about it like he's done his other films. You know, Noel's very much a details person. You know,
Yep.
crosses the T's, dots the I's,
Absolutely.
and you know. So I mean, from Noel's point of view, he's helping out and he's helping get the film get set up.
Yep.
But Adam's not happy because Adam's feeling something of a financial squeeze,
Mm-hmm.
and he wants this movie going ahead, and he thinks that Noel is spending too long, and that he's got to eat, or at least that's how he explains it to Noel. This is
Yeah. The
according to what
perception.
Noel says
Yeah.
in these recent
Exactly.
podcasts.
Exactly.
you know. But
Yeah.
what's really going on is that Adam really wants to get this done in a hurry, and he's got a production company that will do it, but only if he ditches Noel.
Yep.
So that's exactly what he does.
Yep.
He signs a deal with his company, he cuts Noel out, he cuts Noel's company out.
Yep. 100.
So
Yep.
neither Noel or his company is set to make anything out of this pastiche now.
No.
It's all all of that juice has been diverted to this finance firm, whoever financed the film for Adam Deacon.
Yep.
And that's not a good thing. That's a big dirty thing to do.
It is. It is.
But even so, Noel says, "Look, all right, go make it with these other guys, yeah, but that's fine as long as you don't call it something hood."
Yeah.
Because it's no longer connected to my company, to me, who made the hood films. So it's not another hood. It's not another of anything.
No.
So call it something else.
Which is a fair thing to say.
And, Noel's point of view, they had, well, what we call a gentleman's agreement, mate's agreement.
Mate's agreement.
Not on paper, but a mate's agreement. And, because Noel felt Adam was his mate, and he understood that he had to make some money and he needed this project quick, Noel thought he'd be accommodating, he thought he'd be generous and say, okay, no problem, you go and do that. Just don't call it something hood. Just call it something else. You can do what you want. Well, of course, despite promises made between people who are supposed to be brothers, friends in honour, Adam completely goes back on this. Not only is Noel kicked out, and his company frozen out, but he goes ahead and uses the name Hood. Now think about the cultural weight of the successful Hood films.
Exactly.
If it wasn't for Noel Clarke, there wouldn't be a Hood anything. There wouldn't be anything there wouldn't be anything to pastiche.
No.
There wouldn't be anything to rip off. This film, no matter what it does for Adam Deacon, it's another Hood film. This film could not exist without Noel Clarke, and he throws Noel completely out.
Yep, throws him
and
away.
That's a really dirty thing to do.
It is.
So at the end of that, Noel went, okay, I just won't do stuff with you anymore. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. And I will point out, if you've worked with somebody, but you have a falling out with them professionally, it's not intimidating them or bullying them or being in any way nasty to them to just not work with them anymore. That's what normally happens when people fall out over work. Especially
when people fall out,
especially in industry like the film industry. Obviously, trust is a very precious thing.
Oh, 100%.
And once trust is broken with somebody, it's no easy thing to get that trust back.
No.
If it could ever be got trust, if that trust can ever be got back.
No.
So when you break a trust like that in a friendship, long-standing friendship, the consequences are really serious.
Yeah.
In that you can't just repair what you've casually broken.
No, you can't.
So Noel's reaction at this point, this was early 2012. Noel's reaction was simply get on with his life and not bother with Adam Deacon.
Yep, that's it.
He wasn't cool with a Hindu cow with him. He was pissed off with him.
Yeah, he was upset. As you would be.
But in a proportionate way of being an adult and wanting to move on.
Yeah.
well, what happened next was Noel wasn't really thinking anything about this. He was getting on. He was on set.
Yeah.
He was doing his productions. And then in 2013, his social media started to suddenly blow up.
Yeah.
And what was happening was that Adam Deacon was hitting social media, and he was telling everybody that Noel was terrible, that Noel was a bully, that Noel was deliberately sabotaging him and wrecking his
Yeah.
career with whispers behind the scenes and telling people not to work with him and sabotaging his projects. And Noel's like got no time for any of his crap. Noel's working hard, making money, making product. And when he's not a workaholic, because clearly Noel is a workaholic.
Yeah.
When
Oh
he's
God.
when he's not being a workaholic, he's at home, being a father with his family.
Yep.
In actual fact, I hate to say it, Noel's life is rather predictable and a bit dull.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, nothing wrong with that.
No.
But
No.
this idea, when you contrast the two characters, and Adam Deacon is still playing this wide boy character, in real life and on the screen, but
Yeah.
Noel is very much not the character he plays in the Hood films.
No.
And if anybody thinks they know Noel Clarke because they've seen him play Sam, they don't know Noel Clarke at all.
No.
That's
I mean,
not who Noel Clarke is. And if anyone looks at Noel Clarke and thinks that's who Noel Clarke is, they're definitely getting it wrong.
yeah. Absolutely.
Because Noel is basically just this really hardworking guy.
Yep.
But this is quite damaging stuff.
Yes.
But at the same time, Noel, for his fault, for whatever his faults might be, for not being more willing to forgive and accommodate, if you wanted to criticize him for that after he'd been treated really shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
then okay, fine, for hindsight. And I think if Noel knew how all this was going to go, he probably wouldn't have been so hard-assed at an earlier point and said, I
No.
don't want to talk
Exactly.
to you.
Yeah.
But I also think that's completely wrong, really, because this is all about Adam and how
All about.
he
Yeah.
chooses to behave.
Indeed.
So
Absolutely.
from 2013 until 2015, this full-on campaign of character assassination,
Yeah.
lies, disinformation, misinformation, misdirection, manipulation, this just escalates. It doesn't stop. It
No.
goes on and on and on and on.
Relentless. Relentless.
And it gets worse and worse and worse to the point where Noel Clarke's children are being threatened.
Yeah.
Adam's posting pictures of them with gun emojis, but disparaging his mother,
Yeah.
and being insulting about his mother in a sexual way, calling for people to find Noel, to shank Noel, to burn his house down, to find his family, to harass his family, even to rape his wife.
Yeah.
This is not.
Unbelievable.
This is not some social media in trolling, and it most certainly not both as bad as each other. It's nothing
No.
like that at all. This is Noel Clarke being stoic and not wanting to engage, not wanting to drag his friend into something that he knows is actually harming his mental health.
Yeah.
He's trying to care for his friend. He's trying to help his friend behind the scenes. As he says to Zizzy Mills, during this time, no matter how Adam's treating him in public, there's at one point they actually have a little bit of a civil messaging going on,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
They do. They do.
Noel's trying to help him get parts of the films. Noel actually gets him an agent to try and help him get work because he thinks,
Yep.
look, it's all just this rut he's got himself in. He's blaming me for stuff that is just not real. But maybe
Yeah.
if I can help him get working, he can move on and get past it. And Noel's trying to do all these things, but enough is enough when it comes to goddamn death threats.
Yeah.
He goes to police,
Absolutely.
and the police not surprisingly, prosecute Adam Deacon for cyber harassment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Now, at the same time, Adam Deacon's life is spinning out of control in other ways.
Oh
Because
yes.
in an entirely separate incident, he runs after his neighbour with what's been described as a machete,
Nice.
or what Adam himself describes as it wasn't a machete, it was a sword, whatever.
Oh well,
It was
yeah,
a
because yeah,
bladed weapon, and
weapons are different.
he was having a psychotic incident, and
Yeah,
he chased after his neighbour with it, intending him grievous bodily harm.
yeah,
So he gets arrested for that too,
which you will
and he
do.
gets prosecuted for that too.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, bear in mind, right, that even if you are sending somebody death threats, threatening their children, doing all these horrible things, you still get your day in court,
Yeah, of course you do.
and you're still entitled to a defence.
Exactly.
And if you are doing these things, you're harassing a family, you're so het up with your emotion that you have to keep doing that, but you have to keep shouting at them with you about your disgust and your pain at how you've been treated.
Mm,
The court would take that into account.
of course it would.
So, in other words, Adam Deacon had a perfectly valid defence he could use.
Yeah, he did.
That being, what I said was true. Noel Clarke did this shit to me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have got him off the hook completely,
No,
but
no,
it would
no.
have been a major mitigating factor.
Yeah,
So, how
absolutely.
much evidence of his claims to keep himself out of jail and or forcible section into a mental institute? How
Mm,
much evidence of his claims has Adam produced? How many documents? How many emails? How many voicemails? How many witnesses to confirm that Noel had told them not to work with him? How many of these did he include in his defence?
I have this funny feeling it's none.
Absolutely none at
Zip.
all.
Nada.
Thousands of messages on social media, hundreds, if not thousands, of people incited by Adam Deacon to
Yep.
go out and attack Noel Clarke and his family based purely on slanderous bullshit without
Yep.
anything whatsoever to back it up.
Exactly. Nothing. Not a thing. Not a thing. Unlike Noel, of course, who has receipts to use
Well,
his.
Noel has everything
Yep.
to back it up. Noel
On.
has everything.
Yep.
And I think this is what is so important about the reason Noel. What's so important about Noel speaking out last weekend on the two on the ZZ and Winners podcasts. Is that he really has changed, opened a lot of people's minds because
Well.
he
Yeah.
clearly does have the goods in terms of timelines, evidence, etc. Noel's an already organised man.
Oh, very.
You can't produce a successful movie if you can't organise.
Well, no, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't happen. So
It doesn't work like
he's got a particular skill set, as Liam Mason said in
that.
Taken.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
But the upshot of failing to provide a valid defence was, of course, that Adam Deacon was unanimously convicted of harassment of Noel's family
Yeah.
and given a 2-year restraining order. And then at the second trial for a machete incident, Adam tried to defend himself by citing cannabis psychosis.
Okay.
In other words, he was smoking so much industrial grade skunk it sent him psychotic. That
Yeah.
was his defence.
Mm,
And the court listened to that defence and then sentenced him to forcible incarceration in a mental institution until such time as doctors felt he was well enough to return to society.
Right, yeah, which was going to
So
happen.
Adam had to go away, and he had to have a little stay in a nice locked room, in a nice safe place where he had nice medication until doctors felt Adam was behaving a bit more normal.
Yeah, until the doctors decided.
And at the same time, with a restraining order over harassment, the smear campaign stopped.
Yeah,
So from 2015 to 2017, Noel
nothing.
Clarke enjoyed a return of serenity to his life. And for a while, he thought that it was done, and that surely this would do enough to make Adam move on.
Yeah, hopefully. We were all hoping, yeah. As you would. As you would. You'd hope it's done and dusted.
Just
Water and
remember, there's not one tiny shred of evidence, not one supporting witness for any of Adam's claims that Noel Clarke has ever done him down on the dirty in the quiet.
yeah,
While
exactly.
there is no possible denying that Adam Deacon put the knife right between Noel's ribs to steal his intellectual property off him effectively and
Yeah,
make a bunch of money off another hood, and basically burnt his bridges with Noel.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, something happened then in 2017, which also has a lot of relevance to what happened with the Guardian article accusing Noel of all these things in 2021,
Yeah,
which is Adam Deacon had a feature article in The Guardian.
yeah,
And this was an article written to represent his return to society.
yep.
He'd done his penance, his restraining order was over,
All done and dusted.
so he goes to The Guardian and talks about it. And The Guardian publish him.
Yep.
Now, this becomes very relevant later, but also this article is really, really key to deciding what is the truth.
Yeah,
Because when you read what's said in this article, you have to make a choice as to which Adam Deacon you believe is the real one.
exactly.
The Adam Deacon who's the victim, who's been bullied by Noel Clarke, who's been treated so terribly that he's justified in creating a gigantic hate campaign and
Yeah,
running it for years against Noel and his family in the most vile way, but it's justified because of how Adam's been treated by Noel. Or perhaps a lot more realistically, this version of Adam Deacon as revealed in this article. So I'm going to spend some time now, and I really want to pull out everything of relevance here
right.
so that
No
it's
one.
very clear to people. They can see this other side of Adam Deacon, this
Yep,
broken, mentally ill, deluded man,
yep.
and see the true self-destruction he's wrought on himself, how he's done this to himself over the last decade. And
Mm-hmm.
all of his attacks on Noel were attacks on one guy who genuinely did care and genuinely did want to help him, as
Yep.
opposed to the kind of chancers who surrounded Adam Deacon, who pounced at him at every turn and encouraged him to go off the rails.
Yeah,
Who are his
absolutely.
friends? Who's actually been Adam Deacon's friends? The people who've let him go down this path for the last decade? Nah, they are
Nah,
not his friends.
no way. They're not friends.
So
They're not
let's have
friends.
a look at this article in some depth.
Right.
So I mean, it starts off. This is late November, mid November 2017.
Yep.
The strange, sad story of Adam Deacon. I started thinking, will I ever act again? So I've pulled up some screenshots I've taken from the article. We don't need to read every word in it, but
No.
the bits that have relevance. So, who is Adam Deacon? East London-born actor, starred in films such as Kidulthood, pipped Eddie Redmayne to a BAFTA. He was poised for Hollywood until his skunk-induced psychosis led to a row with mentor Noel Clarke and a restraining order. Now appearing on stage in Retreat, he talks about seizing his second chance.
Mm.
When Adam Deacon beat Eddie Redmayne and Tom Hiddleston to the BAFTA for Rising Star in 2012, it caused an upset. While Deacon was a working-class school dropout who played street boys, the Eton-educated Redmayne and Hiddleston were already Hollywood sex symbols in the making. But the upset was nothing compared to what came next. As Redmayne and Hiddleston continued their ascent to superstardom, nothing more was heard of Deacon until 2015, when he was sectioned under the Mental Health Act, convicted of harassing former mentor and director Noel Clarke, and charged with possessing an offensive weapon after reportedly threatening members of the public with a machete-style knife. Deacon's fall was as strange as it was sad. But here's a key thing here. 2012, Adam seems to be rising top of the world, but he disappears.
Yeah.
And then
Just
the next thing a London middle class intellectual I think it's Simon Featherstone, Hatterstone, isn't it? Like Simon Hatterstone.
Yeah.
The next time he's aware of Adam Deacon is when he's getting done in court.
Yeah.
So there's a 3-year gap, you know.
Yep.
That's the hole that Adam Deacon fell down. But there are clues into this as to why that really happened. So let's dig in.
Yep.
Despite the success, Deacon was struggling. His aunt had always told him he should get therapy to come to terms with his childhood, but he never did. As time went on, he became more haunted by his past. By the age of 18, he started smoking skunk to help him forget. It made him increasingly paranoid and irrational. When he won the BAFTA, which had been voted for by the public, he didn't know how to cope. His paranoia, combined with a new arrogance, proved a toxic mix. I believe you got a pass into the big Hollywood films now. It was naive. Right, let me take a moment. Adam's describing his mindset at the time he won the BAFTA.
Yeah, exactly.
From the point of view of reflecting of the shit he made his own life into in the 5 years that followed. And here he is admitting, right at the start of his article, that he was deluded. I believe you got a pass into the big films now. It was naive. In other words, he was expecting something for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. He was just expecting an easy ride, wasn't he? A very easy ride.
His Twitter handle said, "From Hackney to Hollywood." But Hollywood didn't come calling. And think about the ego involved there.
Big ego.
Making that your Twitter handle before you even achieved anything.
Exactly.
How about appearing in a Hollywood film first?
Before saying that,
when you're in the next Tarantino movie, fair enough, earned and deserved.
Yep.
But I think we can see that some disconnected thinking.
Just a bit.
Distinctly emerging,
Yes, slowly but steadily.
I mean, I'll say this, and maybe chat can relate, but it's a funny thing when you get the attention of people.
Yes.
And I don't know if anyone's ever been in a position where they suddenly and unexpectedly got the attention of a lot of people, and how uncomfortable that can make you.
It is weird. It's
and when you think about you're in the public eye all the time, and when you've got this whole bullshit of BAFTA, also doing a number on people's egos and people's heads.
Oh God, yeah, massively.
And how it must have felt for a street kid, essentially, like Adam, to suddenly get something like this Rising Star BAFTA. But I think one of the problems here is that it's voted for by the public.
Yes,
the public are a strange beast.
they very much are.
And if they like an actor to do anything, they tend to overreact and think they're the greatest actor ever in everything,
Yeah, they think they're awesome.
even if
Yeah,
they're really not.
indeed.
So it's all very well this article comparing Adam Deacon to Tom Hiddleston and Eddie Redmayne, but what about their acting range?
Exactly.
So I'm just kindly trying to suggest that Adam benefited from a publicity contest,
Yeah.
not from objective assessment of talent and point of development in career.
Yes. Exactly.
So that the other question is, why would Hollywood people want to put Adam Deacon, who's only played one limited role, aka himself, or something pretty close to himself? Why would they want that in their Hollywood film? Why would
Oh,
they
why would
need
they
that
want? Yeah.
in their Hollywood film? Now, the article, next paragraph here, is one major figure looked appalled when he walked up to receive his award. Check out the video when I win the BAFTA, because Harvey Weinstein is looking so pissed off, like, who the fuck is this little shit coming out of nowhere? We've never seen this kid before. He's come here and won the people's vote. Quote.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The industry didn't know what to make of it or what to do with me. As the rest of the audience applaud, Weinstein sits there with his arm crossed, shaking his head in disapproval. Now, of course, Me Too had broken by the time this article came out. So at the point this was written, Weinstein's name was already sexual predator mud.
Yeah, he wasn't having a good day, was he? Let's be honest.
So by referencing this little story about Weinstein looking at him like he was a piece of shit, what it's doing is it's trying to rehabilitate Adam by suggesting there's a contrast between them.
Yeah.
And that if Harvey Weinstein didn't like Adam Deacon, then Adam must be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is how journalists do things, manipulate people to trick them into falling into the angle of the piece they want to have. But I mean, I'm sure it may very well be true that Harvey Weinstein thought it was a little piece of shit. That may well be true.
Maybe true.
But it isn't necessarily the only reason why things didn't then happen for Adam.
No.
But one thing it wasn't was Noel fucking Clark. He's the one who cut Noel off. He left Noel in the dust. He went off to his new mates. He went off with his new production company, whose price of the deal was to cut off his best friend. And he went along with that. Well, I'm going to suggest that when you have somebody who's a backstabbing, devious little cunt,
yep,
and you've already got everything you want out of them, why would you want to work with them again?
Well, exactly. Exactly.
So,
why would you? Why would you? Why would you entertain it?
What did Adam do to his own reputation by exposing himself to be so desperate for a bit of graft that he chuck his best mate on the bonfire?
Just unbelievable, isn't it?
But he didn't really, he was so greedy, so wrapped up, so narcissistic, so self-obsessed, but he didn't realize what he was telegraphing about himself. To be honest, they must have thought he was a joke.
Yeah.
They must have thought he was a joke, because he was a joke. And then when nobody would answer the phone calls, let's read this article a bit more, because I'm getting a little ahead. After the BAFTA, Deacon went to Los Angeles and talked to the big studios about the need for a regular working class Londoner in their films.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure they.
I'm sure they jumped at that.
Yeah, that's totally persuasive pitch for them there. They all said, that's exactly what we're going to do. But as soon as they got back to London, I didn't hear anything. In other words, he got flim flam. Don't call us, we'll call you.
We'll call you. Yay.
I called up my American agent about a month after. Like I said, don't call us, we'll call you.
Yep.
And he didn't know who I was.
It says a lot, doesn't it? It says a lot.
They were like, Adamu?
Yeah.
So it was a head fuck. Meanwhile, casting agents of the small films had also stopped calling, presuming he would be too big for them now. And of course, Adam himself wasn't projecting that attitude massively.
No, of
I
course he
might have
wasn't.
started happening, but I'm Hollywood now.
Oh, I'm Hollywood. Yeah.
Deacon splashed out in Los Angeles buying 2 rings with diamond chips in them. He doesn't normally wear them, but he is today when we meet at the Park Theatre in North London. The role of Tony requires a lot of bling, the role he was playing at the time this article was put together. So, I mean, we're really getting a picture here, aren't we?
Yes, we're getting
But
there.
there's a lot of other factors that were going on in Adam's life, including his own headspace, that had a lot more to do with his lack of success. But
yes, exactly.
he was unwilling, unable, unwell enough to look at himself, to take responsibility for himself. So he projected it all on Noel. And the more desperate he became, the more outrageous he became, the more over the top he became, the worse it became, until it ended up with him convicted in the court of law.
Yeah. He was on his own self-made slope, wasn't he? For all intents and purposes. Sad, really.
So the article continues. Adam had already fallen out with Noel Clarke over the film Another Hood. Clarke was angry that Deacon had used Hood in the title, although Deacon claims Clarke knew that was always going to be the case because they had initially planned to make the film together. Now, don't you love newspaper articles? You see, everything there is factual.
Yep.
But the slant is, of course, missing that vital context
Of
that
course.
Noel Clarke provided at a weekend.
Yeah.
The reason why Clarke was angry that Hood was in the title was because Deacon promised him it wouldn't be. After he cut him out of the film altogether. We now know that's true.
Yeah, we know this because we were told.
Yeah.
With receipts, of course, remember.
Goddamn receipts.
Yeah.
He became obsessed with Clarke. The less work he was offered, the more convinced he became that Clarke was trying to obstruct his career. I heard that people were trying to sabotage me. I wish I hadn't listened now, even if people were, because it's going to put you in a bad place. But I went out of my way to listen to all this. But reminder, he didn't present any of this or any of his
evidence.
Names at trial.
Yeah, nothing, another thing.
You went out of your way to listen, did you, Adam? Who to?
Oh, yeah.
Silence.
Little
tweeting birds, nothing. Nothing.
Not a thing. Unbelievable.
He started tweeting Clarke aggressively and obsessively and encouraged others to do so. Clarke was sent appalling tweets by Deacon's fans. One featured an image of his children covered by a gun emoji, but Deacon was retweeting all this stuff too. Clarke contacted the police and Deacon was arrested and charged with harassment. I think basically accurate enough as far as it goes. I mean, here all this is being reported in black and white. And then it goes on. Deacon knew he was ill and admitted himself to hospital. But a few days later, he was released. My mum went mad. She was like, what do you mean you let him out? I want him to stay there. He needs to get better. And they were like, he's showing good signs. He'll be fine. But I wasn't better. So a few days later, he mistook a neighbour for a trespasser. That's when he took a 3-foot-long sword off his wall and gave chase. Deacon says that far from it being machete, the weapon was a blunt-edged art-type piece he bought from a shop in New York. Who cares? Nevertheless, the incident horrified him. Again, he was charged, this time with affray and possession of a dangerous weapon.
Yep, absolutely.
Just after this, he was sectioned, suffering from cannabis-induced diagnosis, diagnosed bipolar. Deacon initially resisted being sectioned, trying to bribe his way out of hospital. His phone and computer were confiscated. He was locked in a high-security ward. It was like a prison. It is a prison.
It is a prison. It's
for prison for when you've lost the balance of your mind.
Yes.
And I was off my head shouting things. That's why you were there. Yes.
Yeah.
For the first few days, I was scared. That's also understandable. It's a
Yep.
terrifying experience.
Absolutely.
When he calmed down, he was put in a less secure world and he accepted he needed to be there, but it was doing him good. I found it quite calming. I was coming off a weed and I started to feel better. After 3 weeks, he was released, yet he still had to beat his cannabis addiction and learn to be bipolar, but he thought the worst was over. He wasn't, though, because there was public humiliation of the court cases. In the first case, Deacon was convicted of harassment, given a restraining order that banned him from contacting Clark. A few months later, he was back in court for a sword incident. He pleaded not guilty, saying he was emotionally unwell at the time. When the jury cleared him, an emotional Deacon thanked them for understanding mental illness.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's another way of saying thanks for believing me and not sending me to prison.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
Because prison is even more like prison than a mental hospital.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. If you thought the mental hospital was bad.
Now, the next part of this next paragraph is the most important paragraph of the lot. Have you got this? Are you putting this up, Gobby? Because I'm
As we're going, mate.
Yes, we are.
We're
Right,
talking,
okay.
they're going up on the screen.
Right.
Don't you worry about that.
Yeah,
Don't you worry
okay.
about
I'm
that.
just flipping back. I can see it. Okay.
Shush. I'm trying to be a professional here.
I got it. I got it. You're doing great. Look,
Awesome. Let's crack on.
if you think about nothing else with regard to Adam Deacon, think about this paragraph.
Yep.
Because you've got to decide what is real and what is lies.
Yep.
Is this statement he makes here the truth or the lie? And if you decide it's the truth, then you can't back Adam Deacon's bullshit against Noel Clark for 1 minute longer. Here's what Adam Deacon said. He regrets what he did to Clark. He says it was only in court he began to understand what he had done. I feel bad because he said he feared for his children's safety. I wouldn't be able to do that to anybody. I'm not a bad person. He uses that phrase several times during the interview. I didn't realise how deep it affected him. He was practically crying in court. When I got better, I thought, why did I do this? What the hell was this all about? I didn't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah, indeed. What a
Now,
statement.
whatever Adam Deacon may have meant, whatever intent he may have had in November of 2017, it did not last. And this last snippet of this will actually explain why.
Yep.
Looking back to his post-BAFTA come down, does he feel he was less prepared for success than the likes of Redmayne and Hiddleston? Definitely. They had trained for it. You don't get that in our background. What astonished Deacon more was that the industry was not prepared for it. When I started making films like Kidulthood and Adulthood, I started to become scary to casting directors. That's the feedback I got. They're scared of you because the characters were so in your face. I thought casting directors had the brains to know this is the part you're playing.
No. Okay.
After being diagnosed as bipolar, he was put on medication, which he has stopped taking.
Yep.
It was making him fat and unhappy. So, this Guardian article was obviously given relatively soon after the end of the restraining order.
Yep.
And in it, Adam is talking about all of his mental illness and all of his psychosis and, you know, how ill he's been and how he was trying to get help but he couldn't really get help and his mother wanted to get help but wouldn't really get help, but we put him in hospital, we wouldn't send anybody hospital. And he's saying all this at the same time as admitting he's not taking his pills. Now, if you have serious mental health and a history of addiction, a substance addiction to psychoactive substances like powerful skunk,
yep,
yeah, you've got all these things going on, but you don't face up to it. You're not honest about it. What a mess you're gonna get in.
absolutely.
You're gonna basically you're going to relapse.
Yep.
Shockingly, guess what happened?
Who could see it
The
coming?
harassment started up again.
Yep.
And while it's never got to the same extremity as it did in 2015, it's the same gang that Adam put together around him, his same bestie mates,
Yeah.
who say they're Adam Deacon people because they're so tribal about it.
Yep.
How can anyone be an Adam Deacon person or a Noel Clark person? You're supposed to be your own person. You're supposed to stand your own feet in life. You're supposed to think for yourself.
You're supposed to, yeah. Absolutely.
When people with mad ideas get followers behind them, it gets out of control.
Yeah.
And the
Massively out of
followers
control.
are responsible as what they're following too.
Yeah,
And how
absolutely.
dare they not listen to anything and think it's good enough just to believe a man who's spoken nothing but bullshit for 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe his followers don't, especially the ones who've been making little support videos for Adam in the last couple of days.
Yeah, indeed.
Maybe they lack the courage to face up to the fact he's taken them for a ride and treated them for fools for 10 years. And yeah, they let him.
Of course. Of
Yeah,
course.
but for all this, we believe Adam Deacon. Believe what? Based on what?
Yeah.
Backed up by who? With what evidence? There's none of it.
None whatsoever.
Sorry, back to this last little bit of the article. After being
No,
diagnosed as bipolar, he was put on medication, which he stopped taking. It was making him fat and unhappy. He found substitutes for skunk. He bought a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. I started going on long walks. He took up cooking. He watches videos of people like Stephen Fry talk about mental illness. He was invited on television to talk about his problems. I like to think I could be a voice for the street kids out there that might be going through the same thing.
Okay.
But he feared he was unemployable. I started thinking, will I ever act again? I reached some really bad lows with that. I felt I had to prove to people I'm well again and can act again and be on set. It took a long time to prove to people I'm cool, you can employ me again. 6 years later, Adam, are you really there, mate?
Yeah.
Are you really there?
Nope. I
That's
think
something we're going to be talking about as well.
Absolutely.
So let's get your summary on all of that we've just discussed.
It's I've met many people like this in life where it's always somebody else's fault when they make your own mistakes. It's the biggest thing is if you've been diagnosed bipolar, you can't not take your medication because it's there for a reason. And replacing it with a Staffordshire Bull Terrier and going for a long walk isn't going to solve the problem.
Well, you know what, Gobby? I'm going to give a bit extra context to that. Right?
Go on then.
If you've got a mental illness, but you revolutionise your life, you totally change your environment, you go and live somewhere far away, a completely new place, a fresh start to life, and you stop taking your medication, your outcome is a lot better than if you're in the same situation,
Exactly.
surrounded by the same people, living on the
same
same streets, with the numbers of the same dealers on your phone.
Yep, exactly.
When you stop taking your medication, but you're still in the environment that made you sick, you are guaranteed to become sick again.
Amen to that. Amen.
It's true, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's absolutely true.
It's absolutely true.
The great psychiatrist Artie Lang was a pioneering revolutionary in the field of psychiatry.
Yeah.
He developed the first treatment for schizophrenia. He successfully cured the first schizophrenia cases.
Yeah.
But what he found was you could make someone well in a hospital, but as soon as they went back into the family and domestic situations, which had created the pressures on them, which had created mental illness in the first place, they would relapse within weeks.
Yeah, because of that influence,
which led him to make his famous statement, but schizophrenia is a rational response to an insane world.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an insane world. But you're
And
right.
so, in the terms of mental health, the fact that Adam's admitting even 6 years ago he's no longer taking his medication, he's not going to be a well man.
No.
And
And,
there's
and
every indication he is just as ill today.
yes.
In
Sadly,
fact, probably a lot worse.
yeah.
Because the next thing that we need to do is to look at the evidence let slip by the Guardian journalists themselves. But
Yep.
Adam Deacon was behind the hit job on Noel Clarke in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got the this is the now infamous GK article.
Yes, indeed.
Which was some 7 months after Cale and Osborne's hit piece against Noel, where they basically the actual article is a series titled GQ Heroes.
Oh yes, the heroes.
And Hannah Flint is every bit as bad as Cale Osborne.
Oh
the
God, yeah.
GQ journalist.
Indeed.
So this is a bunch of conspirators slapping each other on the back about how clever and good they are, basically.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And of course, their guard is down, and don't their lips flap?
Oh dear,
It's unbelievable
they did run it off.
how absolutely unprofessional these women are. I mean, they are a disgrace for the name of journalists. They really are. God help you if you ever trust these women with your secret, with your personal information. Because not only do they blow in their original article, they give away who two of their apparently pseudonymous accusers are. They literally tell you who they are. They do the same here. They tell you who the source was. So let's read this next paragraph, just one paragraph from this GQ feature.
There we go.
Just 3 days before Clarke, the creator of a kidulthood film series, accepted the BAFTA Award for Outstanding British Contribution to Cinema, Cale and Osborne received a phone call from Lewis. He wanted them to follow up on a tip that had come in via a Guardian feature editor who had once interviewed the source in the past.
I wonder who that could be.
Now, read that carefully. He wanted them to follow up on a tip that had come in via a Guardian feature editor who had once interviewed the source in the past. There's nothing in that sentence to gender the source.
Nope.
So it doesn't say the source was female.
No, it does not.
The source very could have been male.
Indeed.
And of the 8 people who made a complaint in their own name, and the 2 people whose names we can identify, even though the Guardian tried to make them pseudonymous, of those 10 people, not one has ever had a feature article in the Guardian.
Not one.
Certainly not Gina Powell, who's the main accuser.
Yeah,
and very much the ringleader.
Oh God, yeah.
The other stories.
Indeed.
So none of them could be the source. But who has had a feature article in the Guardian? Well, we've just been looking at it.
Yes,
That's
we certainly have. Indeed.
Not only that, but on social media, Adam Deacon hit the freaking roof when he heard that Noel Clarke was going to get the lifetime BAFTA.
Oh God, yeah, he was not happy.
The word triggered doesn't even go near it.
No.
No. Set off like a bomb.
Oh God, yeah.
Violent, visceral, hateful, mental, crazy, psychotic reaction.
Yeah, it was not pretty. It was not pretty at all.
And as Noel Clarke pointed out in the interview with ZZ Mills, was it ZZ Mills? You know what? No, I think this was on the Winners podcast.
I think it was the Winners podcast.
He talks a lot more detail on the Winners podcast.
He does. Yeah.
Adam Deacon has recently put out music on his YouTube channel talking about, about plotting for 10 years. I plotted for 10 years to bring you down in secret.
Yeah.
Who's he talking about?
Well, exactly. He's not. I mean, he's not clever, is he? Because it's quite obvious. It doesn't take a massive leap of intelligence to figure that out, does it? Let's be honest.
But nonetheless, in all this time, and even after it started up again, Noel has not said anything.
Nope, not a
He's let
word.
other people assume what they will.
Yeah.
Right? He's suffered a lot of damage to his reputation. He took that on the chin because no matter what Adam did to him, screwing him over with the stupid film project, Noel still cared.
Yeah.
And he still cares. And to a fault, absolutely to a fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
But even so, he's just wanted Adam to basically get better, focus on something else, go away, get on with his life, leave him alone.
That's all he had to do, really.
But it's just not happening. And like other people who've been connected to bringing down Noel Clarke and getting his BAFTA cancelled, opportunity is suddenly not for Adam in the time since the Guardian article.
Amazing that.
And now Paramount UK are currently financing a sequel to Anotherhood called,
They are.
brace yourselves everybody, because this is genius, Sumotherhood.
Must have took a time to figure that
But
one out.
as asinine as that sounds, and who the hell actually even wants that film?
Well, no, exactly.
Funnily enough, suddenly it's all greenlit and Adam's getting another payoff.
Amazing that.
Do Paramount UK know that they're backing a man who's threatened to kill children and called for a man's wife to be raped? Do they know that's what they're doing? Do they know they're backing a man who's obviously psychotic, who obviously has mental illness, unresolved mental illness today? Do they know that's what they're doing? They probably do. So why are they doing it?
Well, yeah, which is a big question.
Does anybody really think that Anotherhood is going to be a massive commercial success and a massive winner project that just has to be invested in now?
Not really.
Or is this, it's a bit like politics, isn't it? Politics is a dirty game.
Oh, it certainly is a really dirty game.
Once people have stopped becoming prime ministers and presidents, what do, Gobby?
Oh, well, yeah.
They go on speaking tours.
Sure, get paid a fortune.
And all of a sudden, people are paying small fortunes to hear very boring people give a very boring speech.
Yes.
Was it really the speech that was being paid for?
No.
All very odd. And he's not the only one this applies to who's gone on to have a big break after having nothing for years and years and years after being part of the Guardian's hit job on Noel Clarke.
Which it was a hit job. We've as you said, we've covered this, haven't we? Yeah.
But here we are. It's 2023, and Noel Clarke is finally ready to start coming out and defending himself as much as he can without compromising his still ongoing legal case against the Guardian.
Yeah, which is why sometimes
he's decided enough is enough. And he really wasn't sure he was going to do it. You could see that. He didn't really want to talk about it. It was easy. But then he went on to Winners afterwards, and they asked him the same thing. And you kind of see it in his eyes. I've got to do it. So what Noel has revealed, talking about the other side of this, completely destroys the whole narrative. And it's Noel Clarke with evidence on his side and facts and witnesses on his side. Adam Deacon's never shown anything like it.
Not a thing. Not a thing. Nada. Complete. I mean, if you watch the Winners podcast, when Noel starts to talk about it, and it's get with the laptop. I've got the receipts on the laptop, and he's got it there. So yeah, and lots of it. You know, he
But
could have spent.
we are of course going to be linking both the ZZ
Oh
podcast and the Winners
yes,
podcast.
all the links, including to John's original article, will be in the description at the end of the video, so you can read away
So
as much as you like.
you can dig into this as much as you want, people.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
All the links there. I'll even put the link to the video we did discussing the article that John did. And if you go on my channel, there is now a hashtag Justice for Noel Clark podcast playlist. So you can literally go on and see all the videos. So they're all there.
And of course, everybody should follow Justice for Noel C on Twitter.
Absolutely. I've got it running across the bottom of on the scroll as we have been talking about it. So the more we get, the more we can talk about this, the more we can show our support for Noel, the better. Especially after he came out and did these two podcasts, which blew my mind.
They've really been setting the internet on fire this week.
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
Zizi's got a lot of heat for doing that podcast.
Yeah.
Because being a woman, she's the easier target than the guys who do Winners podcast.
Yeah.
But you know, she really has had some pretty bad heat this week.
Oh, she's took some,
for being prepared to give Noel a platform. But on the other hand, there's also been massively overwhelming support.
Yes, indeed.
And a lot of people are having their eyes opened, and they are questioning what Adam Deacon has been telling them for years. Yes. And about bloody time too.
Yeah, indeed. This needed to happen. You know, I'm glad it's happening now. It's so nice to see. Even if you're not sure about it, the fact that we're finally getting the other side of the coin, the other side of the story, instead of just relying on one side, which is paper thin at best, would be the best way to describe it. It's great. I mean, you know,
but it challenges a lot of presumption and assumptions.
Oh yeah, massively.
Absolutely. But when you step back and you look at it, you can see it's clear who's got validity behind their claims.
Yeah, because somebody's got
receipts. It's not Adam.
No, nowhere near. Nowhere near.
If it was, if what Adam Deacon said was true, there was no way he wouldn't have made it a major plank of his defence. He brought 2 cases in 2015.
Of course you would. You know, if you had it, you'd use it, but
he didn't because he couldn't. But he couldn't because there are no facts there.
No,
he couldn't produce a witness because there are no witnesses there.
Nope, nothing.
He couldn't produce any evidence because there is no there.
Yeah, there's nothing.
So all he could do is get on his knees, beg to be caught, and say, I'm an addict, I'm a drug addict, I'm mentally ill, I'm not responsible for myself, I need help, not punishment. Please show me mercy. Well, I tell you this for free, Adam. I tell you this for free. Don't get yourself in that position where you're in court again and have to try the same shit, because you won't cut it, boy.
No, most certainly will not.
You'll be seeing the inside of a proper cell if you find yourself in that position again. So what the hell are you doing?
Just walk away. Just walk away. It's just.
Now, I did say at the start of this podcast that I wished to deliver something of a personal message to Adam.
You did indeed. You did indeed.
And, you know, I want this to be something that can be snipped out and put out separately.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll see what. I'm going to go off the hoof here. We'll see what comes out. But I think I've got a few minutes here that I want to speak to Adam.
Yeah, no worries.
And look, I'm a dying man. I have got nothing to fear. I have got nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what society thinks about me anymore. I could care less. You know, I my judgment of my life is pretty much between me and God now.
Mm-hmm.
So I certainly don't care what Twitter and social media thinks of me. And I don't care what Adam Deacon's mates think of me either.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you this, Adam Deacon has got far, far less right to dare use words like schizophrenia and psychosis to defend himself against anything than I have.
Yep.
Because there is nothing Adam Deacon has experienced, but I have not experienced too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have been forcibly sectioned twice in my life. I understand what it is like to be in a mental institution. I understand what it is like to feel your mind break apart and fall away. I understand how terrifying it is. I understand how painful it is. I understand what a long road it is. Because I've been walking that road for over half my adult life.
Yep.
But you know what I don't do? I don't use my issues as an excuse to be an asshole. I don't use it as an excuse for why I can't control myself. I don't use it as an excuse for why I lash out and harm others and harm myself and wreck my own life while blaming my best friend. You did all these things, Adam. You keep doing them.
Yes.
You've been doing them for 10 years and it's going nowhere.
Yep.
And you might think that you took part in destroying Noel Clark. You might feel very, very pleased with yourself. But I've got news for you. You haven't destroyed him.
No.
He's still there. Not only that, but he's stronger than ever. And he's got truth on his side. And he's going to be listened to, Adam.
Yep.
And there's going to be consequences. The Guardian's going to lose this court case.
Yep. It most certainly is.
The reputation of those Guardian journalists will be in the toilet. Your role in the whole affair will, in fact, come out. Count on it.
Yeah.
So how long are you going to hide from your responsibilities?
Exactly.
Not only that, how long are the people who trusted you, who believed you, who believed that the world was a cruel place but will do a brother down, who gave you their support, who gave you their backing, these people that you've used for 10 years to push your psychotic, lying bullshit? How do you think they're going to feel, Adam, when they realise that you're the liar, that you're the bully, that you're the abuser, that you're the guy who's been out of control? How do you think they're going to feel with you?
Indeed.
So I'm going to give you a choice, Mr. Deacon. You could be weak, you could be a coward, you can let this get dragged out to its inevitable end, where you are the one with your reputation crushed, where you are the one in disgrace, where you are the one your community will never speak to anymore. Or you can make a choice now. Confess, stand up, be honest about what you've done, remember how you felt in that courtroom.
Yeah.
Remember how you couldn't understand why you had done this. Remember that part of yourself that's been telling yourself how out of order you've been whenever you've been calm and quiet enough to actually hear it. Get back on your meds, get some proper help, stop this bullshit, turn a corner, and finally be a man and do right by your friend while you still can, because you will be judged for your actions, and what you fail to do will be as important as what you have done.
Amen to that. Amen. Absolutely. 100%.
Please get this shared around, especially the Doctor Who community needs to be up to speed. We need to understand this situation. We need to squash this bullshit. And we need to make sure that we all understand why Adam Deacon is not credible and should not be believed.
No, he should not. 100%. It's
And
just.
with
Yes.
regard to chat, I haven't really engaged with chat in this because it's a bit of a focused, serious topic, and we're not having kind of a laugh or joke around like we do on our Friday streams.
Yeah, not normal.
But I want you all to know, once again, I appreciate all of you and I appreciate all of your attention and you listen. And I can see but you get it from what Eastland's saying there, just at the side there at the moment right now. Use self-control.
Yeah.
We are all responsible for ourselves in this life.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we have to stand up for what we have to account for what we've done, or we'll be dragged to accountability against our will. So better to be a man.
It's better to stand up. Better to
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
Better to be honest, better to face the truth, because then you can turn the corner. Then and only then can life actually get better.
Yeah, and life can get better, and people can get on. But it's Adam, just stand up, man. Be a man. That's all you got to do. Because I mean, when I listen to what you were accused of, well, not what you accused, what you actually did to Noel and his family, you're really lucky that you were against somebody like Noel. Because I'll be brutally honest, if that had been me and my family,
it wouldn't have gone the same way.
It wouldn't have gone to court. Let's put it that way. Because we all live and die. We all play the game on Twitter and on YouTube and that. And it's fair enough if you sell a comment and somebody has a shot at you, that's fine. But there are rules of engagement, and one of the rules of engagement is you leave that person's family out of this argument. You don't bring their kids into it. You don't bring their wife or their husband or whatever into an argument. It's not right. And as soon as you do that, you lose all respect. You lose all respect instantly. From
going for someone's family is the lowest of the
it's
lowest.
The low. It's just, I mean, when I heard that, I don't know how he kept his cool. I really don't. And I know this, when I've said things on Twitter, a lot of people are exactly the same philosophy that, you look, it just went to court. It's just, and don't throw people under a bus. If it's your best friend, and listen to what Noel was saying, they were best mates. You don't pick your best mates up and lob them under the bus. It's just, again, that's something else you just don't do.
Not unless you're seriously failing as a human being.
Yeah, because, you need your friends. We all have our disagreements. We all fall out because that's just us being humans. But you never throw your mates. Never throw your mates under a bus.
I look where all that misplaced guilt has put Adam now. Look at the hell that action has turned his life into, because he's not a happy man. How can he be a happy man?
He can't be happy. He can't be happy. And you know what? It's sad in reality.
How can anyone be happy when they're basically consumed by jealousy?
By jealousy. Fueled by the environment in there with the people cheering you on, patting you on the back, telling you everything you're doing great. In reality, you're just destroying yourself.
The reality is Adam Deacon's turning 40 and he's getting over the hill.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's do it while you can. Just stand up, be a man. That's all you need to do. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no shame. In fact, you'd gain a hell of a lot more respect from a lot of people. Because sometimes, you have to own up.
Yeah, it could. I mean, in that Guardian feature Adam was talking about, I'd like to be a role model for people going through this. Well, you have to show that you've got something to offer. You have to show that you've got a path to follow. You have to actually be an example of something, Adam.
Exactly.
So go on. If you want to be that, go and give them an example. Not of a bitter, twisted man wrecking his own life and the life of other people. Yeah, but as a man who really can conquer his demons.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Show people.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Right, I think it's time to wind up, isn't it, Gobby?
Yes, I think so, mate. We're pretty much done. We've covered a lot. You've definitely said what you needed to say, mate. And I think we've covered it. It's out. As I said, all the links to the two podcasts will be in the description down below, and as will everything else to do with what me and John have spoke of way back in the days where we discussed the original Guardian article, which, due to a lot of people on Twitter, they've never even read. I mean,
and the follow-up where we discussed the second article that dealt with the Doctor Who stuff, and the John Barrowman stuff,
and all that sort of stuff,
and the testimony on the record I got from somebody directly refuting one of the accusers, accused Noel of misbehaving at Doctor Who convention, and out calling him out an accuser, a liar.
Yeah,
and it's been 6 months.
Yep. Yeah,
And I'm the first person journalistically to ever get anyone going on the record refuting one of his allegations.
You were indeed, sir. You were
And
indeed.
nobody wants to notice it, because once they notice that one bit of the tapestry is bullshit, pull that string, down it will all go.
Yep. And
but believe you me, it's there
will.
to be unravelled, and it will be.
Oh, it's going to go. It's going to go. It really is. Right then, shall we wrap this up then, John?
Yeah, that must be it. Thank you, everybody.
Then. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Please get this seen and shared, and thank you everybody for your support and attention. And go out there and do some good for Noel. Let's help the man out.
Yeah, let's get the man.
Justice for Noel Clark.
Justice for Noel Clark, indeed. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we shall leave you. Goodbye and thank you.
Good night.